Good morning, Knox. I hope that you are doing well. I miss seeing you and hope to see you again soon. You know, it's hard to believe that we've been in this season of quarantine for a couple of months. In some ways it's gone by fast, in some ways it's gone by slow. But one of the things that I can sense sort of happening within our larger society is that pressures are starting to build. Pressures around public health concerns, around economic concerns, around social concerns, political concerns, and these pressures are starting to build. And a lot of us are in the midst of this wrestling with all kinds of different questions about what the weeks and months ahead look like. And is it okay for my kids to play outside with other kids in the neighborhood? Is it okay to go for a socially distanced walk? And when would that be okay? And are the government's policies and restrictions, are they too restrictive, or are they not aggressive enough? And should they be relaxed sooner, or whether they should be relaxed later? And all of us bring all kinds of different perspectives, experiences, and stories into those questions. Some of us feel the public health concerns more strongly. Some of us feel the economic concerns more strongly. Some of us feel the political or the social concerns more strongly. And so we have different perspectives on these things. We have varied opinions about what should or should not happen. And one of the things that is happening is that just as these pressures build, it provides an opportunity for relational strain and conflict in our interactions with one another and in our interactions with one another here at Knox. And so here would be my encouragement to us as we approach the weeks and the months ahead, is that for the last year or so, we have been talking a lot about what it means to be a countercultural people and what it means to be distinct from those who are around us. And my encouragement to us would simply be that this is an opportunity for us during this particular season to be countercultural in a very specific way. A couple years ago, a pastor in our denomination who is a friend of Knox made the comment to me that Knox is the kind of church where the gospel is always in play. I love that way of phrasing it because it means that at Knox, the gospel is central to the kind of congregation that we are. The way that we think about things is within the framework of the gospel. The way that we relate to one another, we lean in a gospel-shaped way. The way that we do things, the gospel is just part of the warp and woof of how we live life together. And my encouragement to us would simply be that during this season, particularly in the way that we interrelate to one another, that we keep the gospel in play. One of the interesting things about the New Testament is almost whenever it talks about the doctrine of justification by faith, it tends to do that in the context of conflict, and especially conflict between Jews and Gentiles. And in the first century, Jews and Gentiles came from very different backgrounds. They had different perspectives. They had different ways of viewing things. They had different cultural values. And yet they were brought together in churches in places like Rome and Galatia. And there was the potential for real relational strain and conflict. And yet the New Testament, and particularly the Apostle Paul, when they speak into that conflict, they apply to that situation the doctrine of justification by faith alone. And the doctrine of justification is simply that we are all sinners, that we are all broken, none of us stands righteous before God. And yet God, in his grace, has provided Christ as an atoning sacrifice on the cross for us. And so by doing that, he has taken away all of our sin. He's forgiven us our sin, and he's clothed us in the righteousness of Christ. And this is a free gift that we receive. We don't have to do anything to earn it. We don't have to do anything to merit it. We don't have to have the right perspective. We don't have to have all the information. We don't have to be moral enough. We simply receive it as a gift through faith alone. And I think if the Apostle Paul were speaking to the church at this particular point in history during the season of coronavirus, he would apply the doctrine of justification by faith alone, and to say that none of us is righteous. All of us are sinful. None of us have the right perspectives. All of us are limited. And so to come together in the same kind of grace that God has shown us through the cross, and in the same way that he has lavished his grace upon us, we should be gracious with one another. We should be patient with one another. We should be kind with one another. We should have the humility to realize that our perspective may be limited. We may be seeing things from one angle because of our particular concerns, while other people are seeing something from another angle because of their particular concerns. And in the midst of that, to show an incredible, overwhelming kind of grace to one another in the midst of a very difficult season. And so that would be my encouragement to us as a people. Let's keep the gospel in play. Let's show one another the grace that we have received in Christ. And in the weeks and months ahead, we're going to be talking about reopening and what that looks like at Knox. And no doubt people are going to have different perspectives on that. Some are going to want us to open quicker and sooner, and others are going to believe that we should stay away for longer periods of time with more restrictions. And yet I would encourage us, as we walk through this process together, as we wrestle with these questions, let's keep the gospel in play. Let's relate to each other in a spirit of grace and understanding and forbearance and patience and kindness, just as God in Christ has treated us. So that's my encouragement to us as a congregation, Knox. Thank you for being a church where the gospel is always in play. Thank you for being a church that is so devoted to Christ. Thank you for being a church that's so easy to love. I do love you, I miss you, and I hope to see you soon.